In this episode, the queen of paleogasms herself will teach you once and for all that you really don't need to sacrifice flavor and indulgence for your health. We will be making a batch of sweet, tangy, and savory apricot ribs, a pineapple stir-fry made with cauliflower rice, and sweet, chewy coconut macaroons that you would swear are loaded with sugar and flour but have no such thing. Stay tuned to the end of today's episode where you'll discover how to win my very favorite piece of cookware, as well as my cookbook Paleogasm. I'm your host, Camille Macris, paleo chef, lover of good food and vibrant health. Each week, Camille's Paleo Kitchen brings you special guests, recipes, fun tips and tricks, along with a giveaway of one of my favorite kitchen tools that will leave you inspired and excited to cook at home for you and your family. It's all happening now on Camille's Paleo Kitchen. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 6 of Camille's Paleo Kitchen. We are going to have a really fun time today talking about one of my personal favorite topics, paleo comfort food. We are going to start out with some really delicious, slow-cooked baby back ribs with a spicy Asian apricot sauce. All right, so let's get started. We are going to put the ribs into the oven first because we want to give those lots of time to cook down. Fundamentally, when you're cooking things with bones, especially something like a rib, what has the bones, it has all this like fat and marbling. What you do when you slow cook it is you begin to, you dissolve all of that down. So we're gonna make sure that these go for, these are gonna go for 2 hours at 350. You could even do them longer at a lower temperature. And that's gonna accomplish having those ribs that really just fall off the bone, that are just so nice and succulent. All right, so super simple. I'm just going to put some really nice sea salt on the ribs. And then I also have some really smoky, spicy chili powder. Now, if you don't like it spicy, you don't need to put chili powder on. If you have a spice rub that you really like, you can certainly put that on. I like combinations of things like garlic and cumin, a little bit of mustard. You can put some coconut sugar on it if you like. But we're keeping it simple today because most all of the flavor is going to come from this yummy sauce that we're making. So now I'm just going to rub this in. So I have some really nice spice blends in my cookbook Paleogasm. And what I like to do with that is I'll go to the store and I'll get a whole bunch of herbs in bulk, which saves you a lot of money. And I'll make all of the spice blends on one day and then store them in an airtight container. And then I have them to use like whenever I want when I'm trying to make a fast meal. So I'm actually going to give you guys in the show notes, if you go to paleokitchen.tv, I'm going to give you 5 of my favorite spice blends from Paleogasm. So now I'm just going to put some tin foil over the top. And it's actually pretty important. You want to make sure that the foil fully covers the pan because you want to make sure that you're trapping all of the moisture inside. So I'm going to put these in the oven for about 2 hours. All right, now we are going to make our delicious sauce for our delicious ribs. As we make this sauce, I want to illustrate one of the most important principles of making paleogasmic food, and that is learning to layer and balance your flavors. I like to think of it as being like a painter. So a painter may start out with just the primary colors, so yellow, blue, and red. Then they mix those colors together and paint them on their canvas, and it turns into something much, much more dynamic and, dare I say, delicious. So that's really what we want to do when we are making delicious food, is learn how to take those primary flavors and balance them together into something that's really dynamic and delicious. And a perfect way to illustrate this is with our sauce. The first of the flavors that we're going to be using today is the coconut aminos, and that is going to lend a salty and umami flavor to the dish. For our sweet, we are using our apricot preserves. For our sour, we are using rice vinegar. And then for our spicy, we're using a little bit of sriracha, not too much, because you remember that I put that really spicy chili as my rub. So it also depends on how much chili you like. If you like it really spicy, you could put a lot more, and it's really, so it's not so much about me giving you a recipe or telling you exactly how much you should use, but you deciding how much of each of these components you like that really tastes good for you. We also then have our ginger and our garlic, which are going to lend some spicy notes as well. So first, I'm going to peel our garlic and our ginger, and I'm going to chop it up in the food processor. So I have just my individual cloves, and I'm going to smash it down. And just pop out my garlic. So now I'm just going to take off this little nub, and I'm going to peel the ginger with the backside of a spoon. And I really like using the spoon because it seems to keep more of the actual ginger than if you were using a knife or a peeler, personally. I'm going to pop that in. Turn on my food processor. And it's really important when you're using the food processor to save time that anything you want to chop is the first thing that goes in. So now from there, I'm going to use a fair amount of this apricot jam, because this is really the base of the ribs. You know what? I'm just going to use it all, because what else am I going to use this for? But you can use less, of course. So now we're going to add our coconut aminos. We have our rice vinegar now, and a little squeeze of our sriracha. Give that a blend. Going to give this a little taste. It's really important that you taste things as you go. You could be following my recipe exactly, taste it and say, ooh, this tastes terrible. And then say, I would really like it to be a little bit more sweet. Or I would like it to be a little bit more garlicky. Then you can go and you can add that stuff in. Wow, that is really sweet. So, to balance some of that sweetness, I'm going to add some more vinegar. And I'm going to add some more aminos. All right, I'm going to give this one last taste. Oh yeah, you really get all of the different flavors that I was talking to you about. On one note, you taste the spiciness of the garlic and the ginger, and with that little bit of spice of the sriracha. And at the next, you get sweet and a little bit of tangy, and that is just going to go so well with the ribs. Yum. So what I'm going to do with the sauce now is I'm going to just cook it over like medium-low for about, looks like about 15 minutes, and just to thicken it before I put it onto my ribs, because the ribs they're cooking in the oven, and they're releasing moisture as well. So if I was just to add this into that like this, it may end up like a puddly mess, which again is not a huge problem, but it's going to be a lot richer if I reduce down this sauce a little bit before I glaze it onto the ribs. Okay, now that we have our ribs in the oven, we are going to get started on our really delicious coconut macaroons. So now I am going to show you how to separate your egg whites from your yolks. Give it a little crack. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bounce back and forth and get all of the little drips off. You've got to be sort of gentle with this, because if you're not, then you are going to puncture your egg yolk. And I'm going to do that to the rest of my eggs. And while I do that, I want to tell you a little story about why I love comfort food. So I remember coming home from getting the faded news that I couldn't eat gluten and dairy. And after about a month, no joke, of going through a depression about it, I was like, no, I am a chef and I love food, and I am going to find a way, come hell or high water, to eat delicious food that makes me feel good. So that's always been my thing. That's why I wrote the cookbook Paleogasm, because I need all of my food to taste really good and also make me feel good. So really, every episode of Camille's Paleo Kitchen is a comfort food episode. We're just sort of focusing on it more today. So we have our 6 egg whites. I'm just gonna pop this in the food processor and begin whisking it. I'm gonna add a half a teaspoon of salt. And you wanna whisk this until it's nice and firm. You can over whisk. So what happens with egg whites is when they get to the point where they're perfectly peaked, and then if you let them go, there's just a very small margin of error. And so if you let them go past that, they'll break. So these are looking pretty good, nice and firm. I wouldn't say that they're totally peaked yet. I'm gonna give it just a couple more seconds. You could do this by hand. You can also do this with a hand beater, or if you have a KitchenAid, like a standing KitchenAid mixer, you can use that too. So we're gonna call that good. And so to that, I'm gonna add a tablespoon of organic vanilla. And then I'm gonna add about 2/3 of a cup of this really nice maple syrup. 3 cups of organic, unsweetened shredded coconut. Really important. You don't want the sweetened coconut, or that would just be a nightmare. Turn that back on and give it a mix. And that's it. So we have, make sure that it's just fully incorporated. So your consistency will vary a bit. These are probably a little bit softer than yours may be, because I had larger eggs, so that means I had a little bit more egg white, but that's okay. So now I'm just going to get my cookie sheet that I have lined with parchment paper and make some beautiful little mounds. So I'm just going to continue making our tasty little mounds, and then I'm going to put them in the oven at 350 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes, or really until they're nice and golden on the bottom and on the top. But you really want to also learn to rely on your nose, because when you start to smell the smells coming out of the oven, it's definitely time for you to check on it, and they may actually be done. So I'm just gonna finish doing this. It's gonna be so delicious. All right, so now we're gonna make one of my most favoriteest delicious sides, the cauliflower fried rice. It's really, really good. I think you're really gonna like it. You will never miss not eating rice again. Okay, let's do this. So I'm gonna toast these almonds in this dry pan and just keep an eye on it so it gets nice and toasted without getting burnt. And while we do that, I am going to make our cauliflower rice. And so we have this nice little head of cauliflower that's been washed. And now I'm just gonna run my knife around the bottom and just sort of cut into it to release the florets. And one really important thing when you're using a food processor is to cut your pieces into manageable smaller pieces so that everything can cut evenly. I'm going to do these in 2 batches because we want to make sure that the cauliflower can bounce instead of just trying to jam it all in. The food processor wouldn't be able to handle it. So see, that gave it lots of room to move. And we have these really nice little grains of cauliflower. So this brings us to another one of our ninja tricks for making paleo comfort food, and that is to trick your mind with things that seem like the foods you used to eat. So what you're gonna notice when you actually taste this delicious dish, that when it all comes together, your mind thinks, oh look, I'm eating a bowl of stir fry. So there we have the beginning of our cauliflower fried rice. So my almonds are looking really, really nice. They're nice and toasty. And I think they're pretty much good. So now I'm just going to take a little bit of butter. Ooh, not really a little bit, like 2 tablespoons. Ooh, yeah. The butter is already giving off this really nice nutty smell along with the smell of the toasted almonds. It's really, really good. So to that, we are going to just saute up our zucchini. And our bell peppers. I really, really love this griddle. I love using it for breakfast. I just love everything about it. I think it's my favorite thing. It helps you to be able to cook things a lot faster. And I love it so much, actually, that if you stay tuned all the way to the end of the show, I am going to show you how you can actually get one of these, how you can win it just for cooking this dish at home. So you're gonna have to stay tuned for that. So give this a little pinch of salt and give it a stir. Now while that cooks down a little bit, I'm gonna show you how to cut a pineapple. So first things first, you cut off the top and you cut off the bottom. And then you stand it back up and then just cut around. Pineapple is loaded with something called bromelain, which is really anti-inflammatory. And it's really good if you get seasonal allergies, like I do, to eat a lot of pineapple, and that helps with inflammation. And now from here, so there's the core, which is right here in the middle. So I'm just going to cut along the outside of the core. And now for this recipe, we're not going to use all the pineapple for this recipe, but I want to get it into nice little pieces. There we have our pineapple. We already have our onions cut up, but I'm also going to add our cauliflower now into our veggies. Oh man, it is smelling so good in here. Now, normally to this, I would add fresh cracked black pepper, but today I'm going to use a little bit more of that smoky chili powder that we rubbed on our ribs. Now we're just going to chop up our beautiful cilantro. Now I like to add any of my fresh herbs right at the end of my dishes because it helps to keep the dish looking light and vibrant, and the herbs still have that freshness. So this is pretty, ooh, that is really good. Ooh, you really taste the chili powder. Wow. So now I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to throw in our pineapple, our yummy slivered almonds, and our delicious fragrant cilantro. and just a little squeeze of lime juice. Oh, you guys are absolutely gonna love this dish. So here we have our super delicious apricot ribs with our pineapple cauliflower fried rice. We also have finished our coconut macaroons. Now the moment that you have all been waiting for, it's giveaway time! So because this is such a special episode of Paleo Comfort Food, I thought that it would be super duper awesome to give away the thing that I cook with every single day, my Salad Master 2-burner griddle. And no 2-burner griddle would be complete without a copy of my cookbook, Paleogasm. Ta-da! This has just some really, really, really delicious recipes in it, if I do say so myself, including another recipe for cauliflower rice. It has all of those spice blends that I've been telling you about, and some really, really, really delicious paleo comfort foods. So, to win, here's what you gotta do. You need to make one of the dishes that I prepared here today. Next week, we will be giving away some really yummy treats from Pete's Paleo when we do our local and seasonal episode. You guys are gonna love this show. We are gonna show you exactly how to cook with all of the bountiful ingredients that you find every season of the year. I had so much fun cooking with you today. Now it's time for you to get in the kitchen and start cooking. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.